Good morning together. So, dear ladies and gentlemen, and especially dear guests, welcome in Germany, welcome in Berlin, in our capital, the city where the German parliament, the German Bundestag, the national parliament is located. Ladies and gentlemen, in the autumn of 1967, the Prague Spring began. One of the evening, more than 1,000 young people gathered in the center of Prague. With candles in their hands, they protested against the constant power cuts in their student housing. Their call was simple: more light. And with light, you printed on the wall, free to listen, free to remember, free to read, free to believe, free to love. Yes, freedom, this is your topic, this is our topic. The end of that day, more light, they just called it, was a dark one. Under a torrent of police batons, the state even hunted the students in their beds, but the blows of the police could not prevent freedom from blazing a trail. It did not last long, just a few months. Nevertheless, the ideas of that brief spring lived on until 1989 in the opposition in the GDR. When we speak about freedom today, 36 years after the fall of the wall, we do so from privileged position, of course. We live in freedom. We live in freedom. We no longer have to fight for it, but we have to defend it. Because freedom is the foundation of human dignity. In 2022, freedom was named the cliché of the year. At the time of reunification, imagine that 78% of Germans said that they believed that everyone could freely express their political opinion. 78%. Today, not even half of them say so. Recent rankings on academic freedom show that Germany is slipping. Do we still realize how privileged we are? Do we that? In 2017, the Israeli philosopher Carlos Strenger gave a warning. The West had lost its ability to defend its values. Carlos Strenger's question is more pressing today than ever. Have we truly understood that freedom is not a gift, but a duty? Much has happened in recent years. The COVID pandemic tested the relationship between state and society, I think, everywhere. Traditional media has lost significance. Our debates have moved online. Debates have become coarser, harsher. International conflicts reach deep into our societies. Russia has launched a brutal war on European soil. And Germany has learned that there is no freedom without security. For example, we are investing in Germany more money than ever before in defending our safety. That is necessary. But are we investing as much in defending our freedom? Trust in our democratic institution is crumbling. According to the Kerber Foundation, just only 21% of Germans still trust the institution, German Bundestag, and trust the media. The federal government barely does any better. Only the Federal Constitutional Court continues to enjoy broad trust. If we want to defend freedom, the first question must be, how do we regain the trust? Warning speeches and well-meant appeals will not be enough. We will only succeed if we argue without moralizing. We debate issues not to debate itself. And we have the courage to be open to different opinions. What sets parliaments in democracies apart from those in other systems is the parliamentary opposition. They don't block freedom, they guarantee it. Without them, there are no checks on power, no public accountability, no alternatives without opposition. Our parliaments must lead the way with a better culture of debate, one that protects and expands spaces for freedom. Because the purpose of a democracy is not to defend democracy itself. Its purpose is to defend freedom. A study by the Toulouse School of Economics should prompt us to take a critical look to ourselves. It found that in recent years, a cultural representation gap has been felt in many European countries. People in the middle of society no longer feel equally represented by the parties of the center. Avoiding and cancelling unpleasant topics with an air of moral superiority in the media too creates a problem for democracy. This increases acceptance of extremists. All they need to do is play on these topics. Then their absurd other points are also longer questioned, because at last, someone on the political spectrum is saying the things that other parties ignore or run away from. Of course, parliamentarians should not have to first study opinion polls before making their decisions. But when our response, single clap your hands, thank you for that, but we don't decide without society. This is also important, I think. But when our responses are far from the expectations of many citizens, we owe them a good explanation, because voters have a right to understand how decisions are made and how different interests have been taken into account. Trust is created through reliability and transparency. But there's one thing that Parliament cannot achieve: fully reflecting every interest in members' decisions. Different expectations of politics are often reflected in Parliament's image. One side demands rapid, far-reaching reforms. Others want little or no change. As parliamentarians, we have to let both sides down. Radical reforms are rarely the right choice in a democracy, and a life without change does not exist. Our job is not to eliminate differences. This is not our job. The role of Parliament is to make them tolerable. And so, ladies and gentlemen, in autumn 1967, the students in Prague called for more light and were met with violence. Today, we have the light. We live in freedom in Germany, for example, 36 years after the fall of the wall. This is happily the case for all Germans. However, we have to also recognize that this freedom can fade, not as a result of violence, but from getting too comfortable, lazy even. Parliaments have a special responsibility in this respect. They are not just places for legislation. This is not enough. They are the focal points of societal conflicts. The first decision on whether we can work out a difficult issue in a civilized manner takes place here, takes place in the parliaments. What does this demand from us? I think clarity in our tone, fairness in our interaction, transparent decisions so that people understand why we are taking this action, and discussing with arguments, not with credos. More light. The call is more valid today than even before. not towards others, but instead as an obligation for ourselves. And this is the task everybody of us has to deal with it. And thank you for your attention, and thank you for your aims you want to, to achieve together. And thank you for traveling to Germany, and thank you for your hard work. Freedom is worth. Thank you.